You know who's a bunch of imperialist swine? NewLeft.org. That's who. Now this organization, aside from proclaiming to be left, has decided to go ahead and back the free Syrian army, the terrorists who are tearing up Syria right now. Why, you ask? Why do they decide to back them over the actual people of Syria? Well, because they don't believe that NATO is actually getting involved in the situation. Qatar, Israel, Saudi Arabia, none of this is happening. They believe it, none of it is happening at all. And in fact, targeting Tariq Ali, George Galloway, and John Rees, they've called them conspiracy theorists, that secretly the U.S. is behind the Syrian rebels. No, actually they really are. That's not a conspiracy theory because we can literally prove it. A conspiracy theory is an idea that can't be proven, and it's usually pretty abstract. No, in this case we actually literally can prove that the U.S., NATO, and some Arab countries are actually interfering in this situation. We have videotape proof. We have testimony by the rebels themselves. Unbelievable amounts of information that literally prove it. Now, no, don't get New Left wrong. They're not revisionist. They're just thinking this is an actual revolution against Bashar Assad. No, actually it's not, considering the massive majority of people in Syria don't support the rebels or what they do. When you're rebelling against a country, you don't ally with a bunch of countries that want to take away your sovereignty and your rights. That's ridiculous. They're just continuing to propound, well, they're just kind of, the aid's not really coming, but there are countries that back them and support them. No, this is not a revolution. This is terrorism. This is terrorism perpetuated by the U.S., Israel, NATO, and several other countries. Just because those groups found a bunch of people who were disenfranchised and decided to start bombing and murdering people doesn't mean it's a revolution. Perhaps you should rediscover what revolution actually is. Or maybe this is just a, this is just an attribute of the New Left, sucking up to imperialist powers by primarily claiming that they don't exist. I'm not saying that they believe that the U.S. aren't imperialist powers, but that they're not actually involved in the situation in Syria right now, which is absolutely ridiculous. NewLeft.org, claiming to be leftist, should be absolutely condemned for what they're saying. So to them, all these things never happened. The rebels never went and massacred people. That never happened. The mass graves of people who were killed by the rebels that have been proven never happened. So all those reports, the BBC caught faking Syrian massacre pics. That never happened? They actually apologized for it, so maybe you have a hard time pretending that one never happened. And none of this is evidence that the actual rebels, the terrorists, and terrorist is a good word, are actually being backed by these NATO powers. I mean, why would they be backed by Britain, right? I mean, they only faked the picture of it. There's footage of rebels taking government workers, postal workers, and throwing them off of the roof of the building for having worked for the government. Or maybe in their eyes, the footage of the rebels using a person and forcing him to be a suicide bomber against his will, a civilian, never happened. Maybe all this footage is just actually fake.
Now, in Syria, evidence has emerged of rebel fighters trying to use a prisoner as an unwitting suicide bomber in their attacks on government forces. The evidence emerged in video filmed by the New York Times, as Gordon Carrera now reports.
At their base, the group have a prisoner. They say he's a member of the Shabiha militia, which is loyal to the government, and that he's confessed to carrying out killings. He bears the bruises of a beating, it's said, from those who'd held him before tonight. The rebels appear to be treating him well, offering him cigarettes and a shower, and he's told that he'll be released as part of a prisoner exchange. Blindfolded, he's driven towards the city. He's told all he'll have to do is drive the truck towards a government checkpoint. What he doesn't know is the truck is the one that's been rigged with a 300-kilo bomb. The rebel fighters intend to detonate it remotely when he approaches the checkpoint. He's being tricked into being an unwitting suicide bomber.
So I guess all the reports of Swiss hand grenades and Israeli-made firearms ending up in the hands of the rebels, what, never happened? Because it's all just a conspiracy? Is that what you think? So maybe Israel, Qatar, and the CIA, people who have literally made it known that they're being involved, never happened. Or maybe when the Obama administration was literally caught lying that they were actually involved. You know, the documents got released and it was kind of a little embarrassment for about 2 days and then it disappeared. Maybe that never happened. And that's just all a conspiracy invented by, you know, Syrian girl and Alex Jones. And it's all just invented. Now, on top of all that, there's the footage of the cleric with the rebels openly siding with Israel. No one can ever call themselves an Arab nationalist by siding with Israel. You absolutely cannot claim to stand for a free and united Arab world, the Arab region, by literally going out and declaring your support for Israel. This is ridiculous. Or maybe this never happened either. It was on Israeli television. Link in the description, link in the description for most of this stuff. Or maybe that never happened. That was just a conspiracy. And I love this quote you finish with. This organ campaigns against sectarianism and foreign intervention and permanent revolution. I'm sorry, did you just say permanent revolution? You know who advocates permanent revolution, right? You remember, right? I mean, you're left. Maybe you're not actually communist. You're just sort of bourgeois left. But that was Leon Trotsky. I think this statement, this one, about permanent revolution speaks a lot to about what's going on there right now. And by there, I mean thenewleft.org. Let me tell you something. Siding with the imperialists and then pretending they don't exist, that makes you a fraud. You can't pretend these things didn't happen. You can't pretend the Arab League report that went in to investigate the so-called massacres by the Syrian government, and they pretty much came back as having not happened, or were actual regular military engagements. And even then the numbers were completely skewed by activist groups in Syria. And then when the Arab League didn't like the report, they just kind of threw it out and pretended it never happened. And completely ignored it because they didn't like the results, because it didn't back up the imperialist conquest of the country. So, newleft.org, might I just say, from the bottom of my heart, fuck you, you imperialist swine. You are a fraud organization. You're a pro-imperialist. And you're pretending imperialism isn't even happening.